in brine and they're shipped to Winnipeg. That's as far as I know. And this is a brainstorm of a very young man. And we'll get to that in just a minute. In 1948, the co-op incorporated under Dominion legislation, allowing it to sell fresh and frozen meat in other parts of Canada. The name was changed to Canadian Cooperative Processors Limited. The United Nations stopped supplying food for Europe and turned over that work to private trade. The trade in Belgium became unsteady. There were 4 million cans of stew still stored in Swift Current, and so they went looking for market in Belgian Congo. Shipping and wage costs were both up, but despite this, the financial position of the association was sound. They had no capital debt, and the plants were completely owned by 27,000 shareholders. So once again, this cooperative, whoever thought this up was a genius, really, because they had surplus horses that nobody knew what to do with, and they needed to get rid of them. They had people starving in Europe who were willing and happy to have horse meat. And as a cooperative, there were no overhead problems when business was slower. So in 1951, Swift Current approved the sale of horse meat in town, as long as it was clearly marked as horse meat and no other meat was sold on the premises. So the Equestrian Meat Store opened Saturday, 21st of July, 1951. It was located at 44 Chaplin East, just north of the post office, so right around where Market Square is now. The proprietor was Jim Aberdeen, who was the son of Kem Aberdeen, and he was only 18 years old, had just finished high school. He got the idea after partaking and enjoying a horse meat dinner. He said, somebody should start a store and sell it. And after a lapse of a moment or two, he said, I think I'll do it. And he did. At the grand opening, some of his friends who were members of the band played, and Blowtorch made an appearance. The two plants were soon leased to Quaker Oats, likely to permit access to a U.S. market. Quaker Oats started making pet food they owned the kennel ration business, and Quaker opted to purchase the buildings in 1955 and operated them as Alsace processors. And again, this was fairly timely because there weren't that many horses left, and so again, a good time to sell. 300,000 horses had been processed. $20 million in products had been sold. Without the plant, horses would likely have been sold for around $5 a head. Because of the plant, farmers and ranchers actually received over $30 a head. The market gradually changed and fewer horses became available. The Swift Current plant was closed in 1961. And after a number of years of young people sneaking over there at night and running around inside and scaring themselves silly, the plant came down in 1979. So I have a few things over here, recipes for the gravy and the process for doing the brine, some funny articles.
Where, if I ride along railway on my bicycle, where would the plant have been? I mean, is there something I can never figure out?
There is a sort of a stable there, and Rachel says that the people who own the land say that there's still a weigh scale and some of the foundation there, but you would have to ask for permission to go onto their property. So I think we're going to go sometime and
if you know where Tweens Packers is, right east of Tweens was the Poncher City Riding Club, and right next to that was the start of the Charleston.
There was a meat store in Edmonton called the Pony Express on Jasper.
So they've got clever names for their meat stores. I heard from a lot of people that they would trick people. You know, the people, oh, I would never eat horse meat, that would taste nasty. And so they would cook it and feed them horse and then say, wasn't that delicious? Oh, yes, that was very delicious. That was horse.
My mother did that.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're doing it everywhere in Europe.
When she was sitting at the head of the table, sitting at the head of the table, she couldn't eat it. You could wonder why.
Yeah.
She
Well,
told us after.
it is a tricky subject because people tend to name their horses and know their personalities and love them. And so the idea of horses can be disturbing. There is, in fact, a horse plant in operation in Saskatchewan around Neudorf. They kind of try to fly under the radar. They did get a whole bunch of nasty press a few years ago when some of the PETA people found out about it. But there still is a market in Quebec and in Europe. And in Japan, interestingly enough, they have a great taste for horse meat, horse sashimi. Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of questions regarding the butchering process and the products and so forth. When you butcher a beef, quite often you let the halves or quarters hang for a period of time to tenderize and cure and so forth. Was anything like that done with the horse carcasses, or were they boned and cut up right away?
Well, I know that they were cooled before they were cut up, so, but I don't know how long that took. There were also some shenanigans that went on in the horse plant. One lady tells me that some of the guys in the boning room were throwing roasts at each other, and a couple of the ladies on the canning line. Because there were 2 shifts of canning, some of the people would take their supper hour and go to the bucket of blood, and then come back to the plant to finish their shift. Mm-hmm.
I have another question regarding the byproducts and so forth, specifically the organ meats, which was a significant product. You look at the number of horses that were butchered. Were those organ meats not specifically or exclusively all used for pet food, or
Well, that's
was there any market, like was there any other processing, like grinding some of the stuff for sausages or other kinds of?
pretty much the plant focused on the stew and the brining, and the other products were shipped for processing elsewhere. And the mention of the blood and organs being put into black salt and shipped to Winnipeg means that something was happening to them in Winnipeg, but I don't know what. I haven't found that out yet.
Stephanie, what was the building before it was turned into the horse plant?
It was a power plant in Swift Current.
And how long had that been unused? Do you have any idea?
No, it was a power plant that was built and determined to be dysfunctional as a power plant. There was an original power plant on the south side, and then this power plant was built, but it was on marshy land, and so the thrum of the machines was making it sink into the ground. So then they refocused their building operation at the original power plant on the south side. And I know that it was used as a make-work project in the 30s, creosote lumber plant. So I hope they cleaned it real well before they started processing it.
Stephanie, you mentioned the plant was closed in 61, right?
Yes.
But they still shipped horses to the plant after 61, but then they were shipped from there up to Edmonton, obviously, I think, because
Yeah.
I used to be a member of the Frontier City Riding Club, which was right next door. So I was one of those little kids that used to go for rodeos on Saturdays in the 60s. But like there was, as long as I was at the Frontier City Riding Club, which was up until about 1968 or 69, there was always some horses at the horse plant.
Yeah. Well, the Edmonton plant continued on, and then Quaker had operations in Ontario after that.
This would be very disturbing for real horse lovers.
It is.
They're
There
so
was-
sensitive and so intelligent.
There was an exhibition at the other museum some time ago, and we had a binder of photographs, and I always would hide the binder of photographs when I had school groups, because, you know, one time a family was touring through, and I went around the corner, and there's a little girl with tears running down her face. So, yeah, it is a sensitive thing, but it was as I say, a brilliant plan. And one interesting fact is that horse meat gets more tender the older the horse gets. So, you know, people don't have room to bury all their animals. So if they send it to a horse processing plant, it is getting a second use, you know. It's,
I wonder, did you not find it a little bit macabre having the riding academy right beside the horse plant?
Well, you want to make sure they didn't get your horses mixed up.
I'm wondering, if the horse misbehaved, you just threaten you stab?
Was there any training going on there?
yeah, there's a stable down there, but we hope that the people who stabled their horses there don't tell their horses the history of the land, because that would be kind of sad.
I worked on the killing room floor for 2 days.
Yeah?
That was enough.
Yeah, I
I
imagine.
never even got my money.
No, you mean you were shooting them?
No, I was looking after the hides that came popping out this big hole, blood splattering and everything. It was awful.
That would have been a great experience for the World War II veterans, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
God.
That's one of the photographs that I have here is the hiding, and the fellow involved is red.
So did they actually shoot them with rifles, or did they use a bolt type of
I
thing?
don't think they had bolts then. That's pretty modern bolts.
Oh, they just
You
used
could hear the gun going.
Oh.
And, but I don't think it was a bolt. Because they had ammunition.
Jennifer.
Yeah, I wouldn't last very long. I mean, I have no compunction to what he was necessary. We had a guy, one of our,
I think
he told me to make some big packages. So I was going back and look for them when he started. And I talked about somebody, they called it
Three-finger Jake.
Three-finger Jake, there you go, thank you. Probably went right dog
So next month, the Lunch and Learn is Dennis Pilon with an introduction to astronomy. So thanks very much for coming.
I wonder,